The shocking truth about a paralyzed girl's B-Day. One boy's epic gesture changed everything. In a small, sleepy town, a mysterious darkness cloaked the day of Sophia's birthday. The air crackled with suspense, thick enough to cut with a knife. She lay in her hospital bed, paralyzed since the tragic accident that took her ability to walk. Just hours away from the party her parents had painstakingly organized, an energy pulsed, a strange mingling of excitement and regret hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. Everyone knew this birthday would be unlike any other, but no one could anticipate the jaw-dropping events that would unfold as guests gathered. Whispers of worry slithered through the crowd. This wasn't just another birthday. It was a lifeline, a plea for normalcy and joy in a life forever altered. The bright streamers and brightly colored balloons, usually symbols of celebration, felt like a mockery against the backdrop of Sophia's wheelchair. But then, through the thrumming tension of uncertainty, emerged Jonah. A boy of unusual bravery. Jonah had a reputation for doing the unthinkable, for turning heads and daring to defy expectations. And everyone noticed when he rolled up. His eyes sparkled with mischief, and his smile was a promise, a flicker of hope. "I'm going to show you the world," he declared, leaving both laughter and gasps in his wake. What did he mean? How could he possibly change everything? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Suddenly, the room held its breath. Jonah produced a colorful blanket, embellished with twisting dragons and swirling fires, Sophia's favorite. "We're going on an adventure," he said, determination etched on his face. You could almost taste the daring bravery in the air because everyone knew it wouldn't be easy. How far could they truly go? As laughter transformed into gasps, a soft murmur passed among guests. There was a touch of awe mixed with disbelief. The promise of adventure shimmered like a distant star, teasing their imaginations. Little did they know, this was only the beginning. The real surprise was yet to come. Would Jonah's audacious spirit be enough to bridge the gap between locked-in despair and soaring dreams, or would they all be left grappling with a harsh reality? The tension hung, palpable and electric. Sophia's wide eyes glimmered with a mix of hope and fear, as if the fate of her world rested on the edge of this uncharted adventure. What could possibly happen next? The instant Jonah's words hung in the air, the pulse of the hospital room quickened. Everyone's gaze was rooted on him, mouths slightly agape, hearts pounding in synchronicity with the tension that gripped them all. Sophia's breaths quickened too, her body a rigid frame of expectation, eyes sparkling despite the shadows of her reality. "What are you talking about?" her mother asked, the worry lacing her voice, a sharp prick against the new rush of hope. It was a mother's instinct, always protective, always questioning. Jonah knelt by the side of Sophia's wheelchair, his presence a comforting weight. "I mean it, Miss Sophia," he insisted, confidence radiating from him. He unfurled the vibrant blanket, a makeshift cape that seemed to promise magic. "I'll push you out of this place. Just imagine, a real adventure." Gasps filled the room, mixed with soft giggles. Sophia's heart raced. "Where? How?" she stammered, the thrill battling the fear of the unknown wrestling deep within her. "We don't have to go far to start. Just outside, to the garden," Jonah declared, pointing enthusiastically towards the door that led away from the sterile confines of her hospital room. The idea was utterly ridiculous, yet wildly intoxicating. The crowd exchanged glances, murmurs of concern and excitement swirling like a tumultuous wind. What if this went wrong? What if the nurses found out? But something in Jonah's eyes, a daring spark, whispered of rebellion against rules that felt suffocating. "Simon, let us do it," he shouted. The room held its breath once more, waiting for Sophia's response. She nodded, a small but fierce flicker igniting within her. With Jonah's help, she wrapped the blanket around her like a daring superhero. "Okay," she said, the word bursting forward like a freshly lit firecracker. Desperation for freedom broke through the fear, and she felt alive. Jonah tipped the wheelchair back, and with all his might, he rolled her towards the door, laughter erupting like music. The adrenaline surged, drowning out the anxious murmurs of her parents and the concerned frowns of hospital staff. They were breaking unspoken rules, slipping into a forbidden freedom. As they burst into the hospital corridor, sunlight bathed them like warm syrup. The moment felt surreal, like stepping into a painting shimmering, vivid, with hues bright enough to chase darkness away. Jonah wheeled Sophia outside with a triumphant laugh. The garden, a riot of color, held promise beyond what she had dared to dream. There were flowers swaying, bees buzzing, and the fragrant dance of freshly cut grass. But just as her heart soared, an unsettling chill gripped Sophia, a realization settling like ash in her throat. What if they got caught? What if this joyful venture turned into a nightmare? Suddenly, the stakes felt higher, the thrill tempered with a chilling weight. Jonah, seemingly oblivious to her sudden doubts, pointed excitedly towards the swings. Look, you can swing. Just remember, keep your eyes on the sky. Yet, the fear whispered in her ear. What if they couldn't take the leap together? What if? Jonah, wait, she said, her voice shaking, not just from the thrill of adventure, but from the terror that clawed at her insides. But before she could finish, a sudden rustle broke the moment, and they turned to see a figure approaching. The nurse on duty, eyes narrowing as she moved closer to them. Jonah, quick! Sophia's heart raced, and in that instant, they faced the crushing possibility of being caught. Would their brief escape shatter before it had truly begun? What would happen now? The weight of the moment pressed down like an impending storm. With a swift glance over her shoulder, Sophia's fear exploded into panic. The nurse's familiar scrubs loomed like an approaching storm cloud, her face a mixture of surprise and disappointment. Sophia's heart pounded in her chest, each thump echoing the dread that unfurled within her. Jonah, she hissed, desperation slicing her voice. We have to go back. But Jonah remained frozen, caught between exhilaration and alarm. What if he began, his optimism wavering. The nurse's footsteps quickened, and the laughter of freedom turned into bitter silence. Sophia clutched the blanket tightly. We'll get in trouble, she insisted, her pulse racing, hands trembling as her heart sank under the weight of reality. Wait, Jonah shouted suddenly, his impulse igniting an idea. He glanced around. Then, with a determined grin, he pushed her towards the bushes lining the garden border. If we hide, hurry, Sophia urged, her voice a frantic whisper. They ducked behind a sprawling hedge, heartbeats synchronized in a rapid race. Sophia's eyes darted towards the entrance of the garden, praying the nurse wouldn't spot them. What are we doing? She breathed, panic rising. Just give me a sec, Jonah replied, his voice steady yet urgent. He peered through the foliage to gauge their pursuers' movements. She's just doing her rounds. We can wait it out. I promise, we won't get caught. The seconds felt like hours. Sophia's breath quickened as she pressed her back against the cool, leafy branches. The exhilarating moment of freedom seemed to slip away, submerged in the surf of fear and the looming threat of authority. Why did I let you drag me out here? She muttered, fighting to shake the shaking from her voice. What if we get sent back? Jonah shot her a confident smile, yet it faltered slightly. We won't get caught. Trust me. But if we do? He hesitated, the implications running through his mind. Well, we can't think about that, okay? She wanted to laugh at his unwavering faith, but laughter felt miles away. Anxiety creased her brow as she focused on the ground, the cool earth beneath her seeming both grounding and isolating. Then, suddenly, bursting the tense silence, the nurse called out, Sophia, are you out here? The air around them thickened, suffocating in intensity. Jonah's eyes widened, and dread wrapped its fingers around Sophia's heart. Quick, he murmured, glancing back at the now ominous path leading to the hospital. They couldn't give in now. They had ventured too far to turn back. Sophia felt the thrill of rebellion clawing at her, even as every warning bell in her head screamed to stop. Just a little longer, she whispered to herself, longing to experience this brave new world even if only for a fleeting moment. Jonah. The nurse's voice cut through again, sharper this time, tinged with a hint of worry. Sophia, we're running late for your appointment. Go back. Just go. Sophia urged Jonah, the impending danger filling her words. But Jonah shook his head resolutely, determination etched across his face. No way. Not yet. And then, as if the universe conspired against them, the wind rustled loudly through the leaves. The sound seemed to echo their fear, announcing their presence to the world around them. Jonah, she whispered, fear lacing her voice. Just then, in a moment that seemed to stretch indefinitely, the nurse stepped closer, her institution-backed authority sealing fate in an iron grip. But it was what happened next that shattered their fragile bubble. A loud crack of thunderclap rang in the sky, swift and overlooked, mirroring the storm of emotions swirling within Sophia. They would have to fight to keep this moment alive, the very embodiment of hope, and risk everything. But would it change them forever? As the nurse turned the corner, footsteps fading but not far behind, the truth loomed large. This adventure had just begun, and the stakes were rising. What would Sophia discover about herself and her dreams if they dared to go all in? Sophia held her breath, her heart pounding as she crouched behind the hedge, the rush of wind whispering uncertainty through the leaves. Time stretched, the world around her fading, and all she could hear was the thundering pulse in her own ears. What now? She whispered, terror clawing at her throat. Jonah's eyes darted between the nurse's diminishing figure and the darkened expanse beyond the garden's edge. The moment felt electric, heavy with the choice of staying safely hidden or breaking free into the unknown. We can't stay here forever. His voice was firm, infused with a strange blend of excitement and urgency. What's the worst that can happen? The worst? You mean getting shipped back? Or worse still, having to explain why we snuck out? She shot back, biting her lip. It felt alien to challenge him like this when they were usually united by the same dreams of escape. His smile faltered, becoming a mere flicker of confidence. Sophia, listen. He grabbed her hand, squeezing it like a lifeline. It's our chance to be free. We can't waste it. And just then, the distant wail of a siren pierced the air, slicing through the moment with the cold reality of their situation. It surged like an incoming wave, crashing into her resolve. Fear pooled in her stomach. We need to go, she began, but Jonah's grip tightened around her wrist. He peered again, his determination igniting something in her, a tiny flame of rebellion that flickered against her fears. Let us sneak to the fence. If we can just make it to the other side. His eyes sparkled, the thrill of adventure sparking hope. We'll be in the old park. No one goes there anymore. Her heart raced. The thought of freedom wrapped around her like a comforting blanket, at least for a fleeting moment. Okay, she finally exhaled, embracing the risk, the chance of something more. As they slipped from behind the hedge, they moved like shadows, darting toward the fence that separated them from the outside world. Every sound magnified: the rustling leaves, the echo of their footsteps, and every second stretched, horror and anticipation fighting for dominance within her. Suddenly, Jonah stopped. We're not alone, he hissed, his voice a frantic whisper. Sophia turned her head, her heart in her throat. A pair of figures lingered near the hospital entrance, their expressions etched with confusion. She recognized them instantly: 2 other patients from her wing, their spontaneous curiosity threatening to expose their secret. Shoo, Jonah urged, pulling her closer, eyes locked on the duo, who seemed to be debating whether or not to venture outside. Do you think they saw us? Sophia's voice was barely audible, the fear of being caught paralyzing her instincts. I don't know. He clenched his jaw. What if they tell? The thought loomed large. Just as they were about to retreat, one of the figures turned their head, pointing toward the bushes. Look, I think I saw someone. Oh no. A cold dread settled over Sophia like a heavy blanket. The faint glimmer of hope faced a dark and twisted reality. With every heartbeat thundering in her ears, they had to make a choice: run toward the fence and risk being seen, or backtrack into the safety of the hospital. But as the truth hung heavy in the air, another sound broke through the din: a loud crash from behind. What was that? Jonah's eyes grew wide, mirroring her own. A chaotic rumble, the rustling of branches, and then the unmistakable sound of panicked voices crescendoed, fresh threats closing in. They exchanged a glance, both on the precipice of taking a monumental leap into freedom or back to the oppressive walls of confinement. And then, the moment shattered, a revelation flickered in the air. What if escaping meant more than just leaving the grounds? What if it changed everything for them and the whole world around them? The garden held its breath as they prepared to leap into the unknown, but another crash echoed ominously in the distance, and Sophia realized that this escape might lead them somewhere neither of them intended to go. But wasn't that where true adventure lay? What awaited them on the other side of that fence? Jonah's grip tightened on Sophia's hand as the crashing noise pierced through the damp night air, sending icy fingers of dread crawling down her spine. "We can't stay here," he breathed, his voice barely above a whisper. With a quick glance back toward the hospital, confidence flickered in Jonah's eyes. "Now or never," he urged, taking a step forward as if inviting her to leap into the dark abyss of uncertainty. But hesitation gnawed at Sophia, anchoring her feet to the ground. What if they were caught? What if freedom wasn't what she'd imagined? Thoughts whirled in her mind like leaves in a storm, but the sound of footsteps drawing nearer snapped her back to the moment. She had to decide. "Okay," she said, squaring her shoulders. They sprinted toward the fence, hearts pounding in unison. Each step felt like a countdown, a race against the echoes of pursuit. Just as they reached the weathered wooden fence, a shadow materialized beside them, one of the patients from their wing. It was Lily, her eyes wide with alarm, anxiety gripping her features like a vice. "You're not going to," she started, but Sophia cut her off. "Lily, we have to go?" The words spilled out, frantic and desperate. "You can't follow us. You'll get caught." A mix of longing and fear washed over Lily's face. "I can't stay here. I don't want to go back then go. Now." Jonah barked, and the urgency in his voice pierced through the chaos. But before Lily could respond, another crash erupted from behind the hospital, louder and more chaotic than before. The ground trembled under their feet, and panic surged through Sophia's veins like fire. Her decisions became clearer. "We're going," she reiterated, her voice fierce. Taking a gamble, she scaled the fence, her heart racing against time. Jonah followed quickly, his breath harsh as he climbed over and landed beside her on the other side, grass prickling underfoot. The world beyond the hospital was dark and vast, feeling so different from the confined space they had known. The night air wrapped around them like a cloak, but with it came an eerie stillness. For a heartbeat, they paused, savoring the feel of realness outside the sterile walls. But the moment was short-lived. A sharp cry cut through the murkiness, sending chills down Sophia's spine. It was followed by the sound of heavy footsteps, breaking branches, and muffled shouts. They weren't alone, someone or something was out there. "Run," Jonah shouted, urging her forward, and they sprinted into the depths of the overgrown park, shadows twisting beneath the trees as branches reached out like skeletal fingers. They dashed into the dense underbrush. Sophia could feel her heart hammering through her chest, each thump echoing her desperation. "Where do we go?" she gasped, glancing around, the darkness closing in like a living entity. "There's a clearing," Jonah shouted over his shoulder, his urgency mixing with raw fear. "Just a little further." They raced toward the faint glow that beckoned like a distant star, a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. But a sudden rustle behind them made them falter, and Jonah stumbled, grasping at the trunk of a thick tree for support. "Sophia," he wheezed, panic surging in his voice. "We need to go back." "No," she insisted, fear locking her limbs in place. "We can't. We have to keep moving." But the rustling grew louder, closing in, relentless and terrifying. And then she saw it, a flash of something dark and gleaming amidst the shadows, eyes glinting like cold steel in the moonlight. "What is that?" she whispered, dread pooling at the base of her stomach. She didn't have time to think. The night was suffocating, echoing with her fear, pushing her forward into the unknown. As she pulled Jonah along, adrenaline coursed through her veins. Was their freedom worth the danger? Was the unknown enticing or terrifying? And what was lurking in the dark, waiting for an opportunity to strike? Sophia didn't know, but there was no turning back now. Every second brought them closer to something profound, something they couldn't yet understand, and suddenly, the adventure had twists beyond their wildest imagination. Branches whipped against Sophia's arms as they sprinted deeper into the park, the dark swallowing them whole. The echoes of their racing hearts matched the growing cacophony behind them. Jonah's grip on her hand was a lifeline, but that connection could only protect them so far. "Jonah, we have to find somewhere to hide," she urged, desperation creeping into her voice. "There," he shouted, pointing to a cluster of dense bushes nearby. They dove into the undergrowth, panting heavily as they wedged themselves between the thick branches. The foliage enveloped them, but the air was electric with tension. The distant shouts and the heavy footfalls were now horrifyingly close. Sophia pressed her back against the rough bark of a tree, trying to control her uneven breaths. "Do you think they saw us?" "I don't know," Jonah whispered, the fear in his eyes mirroring her own. "We have to stay quiet." As seconds turned to minutes, the world around them grew suffocating. The only sounds were the rustling of leaves and the frantic pounding of her heart. But then, through the silence, came a faint voice, hushed, frantic, but undeniably familiar. "Jonah. Sophia, where are you?" It was Lily, calling out into the dark. Sophia's chest tightened. "She's still out there," she murmured, worry pooling in her stomach. "What if they catch her too?" "Shoo," Jonah hissed, pressing a finger to his lips. "We can't risk it. If they find us, we're done for." Against her better judgment, Sophia felt a surge of guilt. They couldn't just leave her. But the footsteps were growing louder, and the dangerous thrill of being hunted enveloped them. Whatever was out there was relentless, and it sent chills cascading down her spine. That a sudden crash nearby made Jonah jump, his hand tightening around hers in a mix of fear and resolve. "We can't stay here," he said again, more adamantly this time. "How can we leave? What if we get caught?" Her voice trembled, panic fluttering in her throat. "We'll make it. Just follow me. If we don't move now, we'll miss our chance," he urged. Against her instincts, she nodded. They pushed through the thick greenery, flat against the ground to avoid being seen. The underbrush snagged at her clothing, but she hardly noticed. Her mind was spinning too fast, calculating their next move. Suddenly, another voice joined the chaos. "This way." A figure emerged from behind a large oak, its outline barely visible in the moonlight. "Who's there?" Jonah asked, each word laced with suspicion. "It's me, Max. They're looking for you." The tall, wiry figure of their friend tumbled from the shadows, eyes wild with urgency. "We have to go now?" Sophia hesitated. "Where's Lily?" "I don't know," Max replied, his voice strained. "She was just behind me," but a bone-chilling howl erupted from the distance, piercing through the night like a sharp blade. It was a sound unlike anything they had ever encountered, and the energy shifted from tense hesitation to a primal urge to survive. "What was that?" Jonah breathed, his face paling as fear washed over him. "What do we do?" Sophia asked, scanning the shadowy landscape, eyes darting between her friends and the trees. "We move. We can't let it get closer," Max urged, grabbing Sophia's arm and pulling her along. The three darted from the bushes into the open. The clearing was just ahead, lights spilling from a nearby street lamp. But the sounds were closing in. The howls crescendoed, mingling with shouts from the hospital staff who had finally joined the search. As they dashed toward the light, the ground trembled beneath their feet again, shaking with a low, rumbling growl. They had no idea what hunted them. But one thing was clear: something dark and primal was out there, and it was relentless. "Keep moving," Jonah yelled, pushing them forward. The clearing felt like a mirage, ever out of reach as they raced toward what they hoped was safety. But as they burst through the last thicket, a massive figure loomed ahead, silhouetted in the light, a nightmare waiting to rendezvous. "What the hell?" Max whispered, eyes wide. Sophia's breath hitched in her throat. The truth felt heavy and suffocating, something beyond comprehension. How would they ever escape this darkness? And just when she thought they might have a chance, something moved in the shadows again, stalking them with hungry intent. The moment had come. They had to uncover the truth before it consumed them all. Max's eyes widened as he staggered back, colliding with a tree. Instinctively, Jonah stepped in front of Sophia, shielding her from the looming terror that now held them captive in its shadow. The figure before them was huge, the silhouette undulating in the light, casting long, distorted shapes on the ground. It was more beast than human, its features grotesque and irregular. A low growl escaped its throat, vibrating in the tense air like a war drum. "What do we do?" Jonah whispered, his voice trembling. Sophia's heart raced. "We run," she screamed, unsure of where that impulse came from, but feeling the urgency crash over her like a wave. In that split second, the figure lunged, its eyes blazing with an otherworldly hunger. Jonah barely had time to react when he shoved Sophia aside, moving just in time to escape the beast's clawed swipe. "Run!" he shouted, his voice cracking with fear. Sophia didn't need to be told twice. She grabbed Max's hand, and they darted left, away from the clearing and into the dense trees again. Behind them, she could hear the creature snarling, its claws tearing at the earth as it pursued them. Branches whipped against her as they sped through the darkness, the blinding fear forcing her to focus only on survival. The howling from before wasn't just echoing in the distance anymore, it was right at their heels. Every instinct screamed for her to look back, but she resisted, pushing her body to go faster. "Where are we going?" Max yelled, a note of desperation creeping into his voice. "I don't know," Sophia shouted back, panic spilling over. "We need to find Lily. She could be in danger. That monster will shut up," Jonah hissed, stumbling slightly before finding his footing again. "Listen, we need to find a place to hide. Somewhere they won't look." Sophia barely caught Max's nod. They continued racing forward, the chill of the night air wrapping around them. Her breath came in quick, shallow bursts. It felt like the darkness closed in on them like a vice, squeezing tighter with every heartbeat. But then she heard a familiar scream slicing through the cacophony of chaos, agony and fear woven into it. "Lily," she gasped, the name stuck in her throat like a dagger. "That's her," Max cried out, pulling away from Sophia to follow the sound. "This way." As they sprinted deeper into the park, the environment shifted from an open expanse to tangled roots and brambles. It felt like a labyrinth, every turn revealing another dark moment, another place to hide or be hunted. "Stay close," Jonah shouted, but he was losing ground. Sophia realized they were scattered now, shadows hidden in the shadows. She felt a surge of terror. "Jonah!" she yelled, hoping he could hear her, but the only reply came from that monstrous roar, echoing from somewhere deeper in the woods. "Faster," Max urged, jerking Sophia back toward him. With every step, the ground vibrated beneath them, rhythmic and alive with peril as the horrid growls intensified. And then they found it a small, dilapidated shed, cloaked in shadows. It stood gaunt and old, a forgotten relic. Inside, Max shouted, yanking the door open. It creaked ominously, crawling with the musty smell of decay. There was barely enough room for the three of them, but they pushed inside, hearts racing against the stale as the door closed. Silence enveloped them, broken only by their frantic breaths. But then, something stirred outside, a dark, looming presence drifting closer. Sophia felt the weight of dread settle heavily on her chest. "Can it smell us?" she whimpered, pressing her back against the splintery wall. "I don't know." Jonah finally emerged from the shadows, breathless and panicked. "Where's Lily?" That question hung over them, thickening the air with uncertainty. Their eyes darted around, searching for any sign of the friend they had left behind in their frantic escape. But as the shadows shifted outside, something slammed against the shed hard, startling them all. Just when she thought the night couldn't get more terrifying, the door rattled violently, and a deep howl echoed again from the other side, causing the wood to shudder. "What was that?" Max shouted, terror rampant in his wide eyes. In that moment of despair, they knew something worse than they had ever imagined was closing in, and there was no way out. Would they ever reunite with Lily? And from the depths of the night, a chilling realization washed over Sophia. They had indeed uncovered something sinister, something that could doom them all. The air was thick with fear, swirling like the dust motes that danced in the dim light of the shed. Sophia pressed her palms into the splintered wood behind her, as if bracing herself against a creeping wave of despair. The rattling at the door ceased, replaced with eerie silence. But it was the kind of silence that felt like a predator stalking just outside their line of vision. What if it breaks through? Max's voice trembled, barely above a whisper. In the darkness, she could see the sheen of sweat on his brow, and his trembling hands clenched tightly around his own knees. I can't take this," Jonah groaned, pacing back and forth. His shadow lunged and shivered against the walls, reflecting their own rising panic. "Stop," Sophia commanded, her heart racing. Just think." She knew they needed a plan, but each time she tried to focus, the sounds of the woods outside seeped into her mind, rustling leaves, distant howls, and that jarring noise when whatever was outside slammed into the door again. She willed herself to overcome the chill creeping down her spine. We have to find Lily. We can't just wait here. Wait, listen. Jonah froze. What if that thing took her? That idea ripped through her like ice water. No. We have to hope she's okay. She snapped back, though her voice wavered. Maybe it missed her, maybe she ran. Max shook his head. What if she was right behind us? What if we left her to stop it? Sophia shouted, her voice shaking with anger and fear. They needed to pull together, not tear each other apart. We can't think like that. Suddenly, something scraped against the metal shed, a clawed sound that felt like nails on a chalkboard. Sophia felt her breath hitch, panic seizing her chest. The door burst open. Light spilled into the room like a spotlight, cutting through the darkness. For a second, Sophia thought they were done for. But as the light spilled over the figure silhouetted on the threshold, she blinked in disbelief. Lily? Jonah's voice was a mix of hope and hesitation, but it wasn't Lily standing there. The beast stood motionless, a grotesque outline, the same creature they had narrowly escaped. Except now the creature seemed distracted, its focus shifting away from them into the shadows. I can't believe it, Max whispered as he edged backward, the realization dawning on him that this monster wasn't just a mindless killer. It was hunting. Sophia felt a spark of understanding ignite in her mind. We have to draw it away. We can't let it find her. Are you out of your mind? Jonah barked. You want us to go out there? She squared her shoulders, frustration turning into determination. If it's hunting, then we have to lure it. We can't just hide here and let it find Lily. Before Jonah could protest further, the creature let out another shriek, echoing through the trees like a death knell. It thrummed in her bones, making her think of Lily's terrified face. Now, Sophia shouted, and without waiting for their agreement, she dashed toward the door, the world beyond unforgiving and dark. Wait, Jonah yelled, but it was too late. She burst outside, heart thudding like a drum. The shadows danced wildly around her as she searched for anything to distract their pursuer. Just then, her eyes landed on a tangle of branches, dry leaves, and debris. Perfect. Max and Jonah stumbled after her, eyes wide with panic. What are you doing? Jonah shouted. Creating noise. It'll have to chase me. As she gathered a handful of sticks and began tossing them behind her, the creature turned its attention. It lumbered forward, nostrils flaring, drawn to the sounds. The plan was reckless, maybe even crazy, but fear for Lily burned within her. And as she sprinted deeper into the darkness, the shed fading behind her, she heard Max and Jonah calling her name. But she couldn't look back. Not now. Follow me. I'll lead it away, she shouted, adrenaline pushing her faster. But before she could formulate the next step, a chilling snap echoed through the trees, and then a low growl began to rise again, more menacing than before. It was then that she realized what they had awakened was more than just a monster. It was part of something bigger, something sinister lurking in the heart of the woods, waiting for the moment to strike. Just as she thought they had a chance, a figure stepped into her path, dark and foreboding, a glimpse of the true terror they had yet to face. What had they stumbled into? And more importantly, could they escape it? The darkness pressed in tightly around Sophia as she darted deeper into the woods, the chill of night seeping through every layer she wore. Her heart pounded wildly, each beat a reminder of the urgency pressing upon her. If she didn't get far enough away, that thing would go after Jonah and Max too. She could hear them behind her, branches snapping under their frantic footsteps. Sophia, stop! Jonah shouted, desperation lacing his voice. But she couldn't stop. Not now. She could feel the creature's weighty presence close behind, tracking her like a bloodhound on a hunt. She risked a glance over her shoulder, and her breath caught as she saw the outline of the monstrous beast plowing through the underbrush. It was closer than she'd hoped, its jagged silhouette outlined against the pale moonlight. Over here, she yelled, veering to the right, hoping her decision led them towards safety instead of into its waiting jaws. She swerved, pushing through a curtain of low-hanging branches and brambles. Ahead, she saw a small, abandoned shack just peeking through the trees. It was a risk. It might be a trap set by the creature, or worse, an old haunt of its kind. But it was shelter, and her instincts urged her toward it. "Come on, we can hide," she screamed, and as she reached the door, she yanked it open with all her strength, praying it wouldn't creak too loudly as she stumbled inside. Max and Jonah caught up, panting hard, their faces pale and eyes wide with fear. The splintered wood of the shack smelled of rot and time, but it was a refuge for the moment. They ducked in just as she slammed the door shut, holding her breath, listening. There was an oppressive stillness in the air, broken only by the thundering of her own heart. It felt as if the shack was alive, holding its breath as they waited, fear hanging in the air like thick fog. "Did it follow us?" Max gasped, leaning against the wall, trying to catch his breath. Jonah peered through a small, grimy window, his eyes scanning the darkness outside. "I don't see it," he whispered, but his voice sounded shaky. "Maybe it got distracted," Sophia offered, though her voice trembled. The truth gnawed at her. Whatever that creature was, it wasn't he alone. As her thoughts raced, a faint rustle caught her attention from deep within the shack. "Did you hear that?" she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Max strained to listen as well, and then it came again, a soft, eerie sound, like scratching against wood, low and rhythmic. "Oh my God," Jonah breathed. "What if there's more of them?" Sophia's stomach twisted at the thought, the weight of helplessness settling on her. "We need to find a way out. We can't stay here." Suddenly, a low growl resonated through the shack, vibrating the wooden floor beneath their feet. The creatures outside had found them. They could almost smell the scent of fear rising in the air, a heady mixture of adrenaline and dread that filled the cramped space. "Move," Sophia shouted, gripping Jonah's arm, and together they hurried to the back of the shack where a window offered an escape route. She shoved it open, the rusty hinges protesting loudly. "It's now or never." They scrambled through the opening just as the door burst open, a cacophony of splintering wood and growls erupting as the shadows descended upon them. Landing in a heap on the ground outside, they barely had time to get up before the world exploded in a flurry of motion. A mass of fur and teeth lunged toward them. "Run!" Sophia screamed, her voice piercing through the chaos as more figures emerged, melding into the darkness like hungry phantoms. As they sprinted away, their only thought was survival. But in that moment of frantic escape, a chilling question struck Sophia to her core. Where was Lily? Had they lost her forever? And what kind of monstrous force lay in wait for them, waiting to snatch whatever fragments of hope they had left? In the shadows, the creature's growls grew deeper, filled with an unsettling hunger that lurked far more sinister than the chase. Would they be able to find Lily before it was too late? Or was the growing darkness just the beginning of their nightmare? The night sky loomed overhead like a dark, watchful eye as Sophia, Jonah, and Max sprinted deeper into the woods, hearts pounding like war drums in their chests. The terror they had awakened pursued them relentlessly, a growl echoing amidst the looming trees and swallowing their cries for survival. Every crash and howl was a reminder that there was no escaping the darkness that was upon them. They darted through the tangled underbrush, the fear and desperation clawing at them with every step. Max's breath came in quick bursts as he stumbled. "We can't keep running. We need a plan." But Sophia's mind was a chaotic whirlwind of dread. "Lily, we have to find her." Ignoring Max's plea, Sophia pressed on, propelled by the fire of hope ignited within her. She let the thought of Lily lead her through the darkness, a flickering beacon guiding her way. Suddenly, a soft sound captured her attention, a fragile rustling echoing from nearby. "Lily?" she called out, winding through the dense foliage toward the source of the noise. The trees parted for her like ghosts, revealing a faint outline standing alone. "Lily!" The relief flooded through her veins unlike anything she'd felt before. Lily stepped into the moonlight, trembling, her expression a mix of terror and determination. "I thought you guys got caught. I was what is chasing you." Jonah cut in, urgency surging in his tone, but before Lily could respond, a piercing howl shattered the night. The sound sent a cascade of shivers down their spines. The creature was closer than they ever anticipated. "We have to move now," Jonah commanded, gripping Sophia's arm. Without a moment's pause, they skedaddled deeper into the forest, moving with a fierce energy that only fear can evoke. Before long, They found themselves at the edge of a sharp drop in old quarry, its walls steep and unforgiving, yet they had little choice. There, Max pointed to a narrow ledge winding along the edge. We can climb down there. No. Sophia shook her head. It'll be too dangerous. We'll end up getting hurt. Before they had time to come up with a different plan, the earth rattled beneath them, and the snarl of the creature pierced through the chill in the air. The urgency propelled her into action. We have to take the risk, she yelled, determination flaring. Eyes darting between each other, they began their descent down the ledge. Each handhold felt precarious, but they moved with purpose, fueled by adrenaline and a shared desperation to escape. The sound of their heartbeats thudded along with the echoes of their footsteps. They finally reached the bottom, breathless and shaky, but they knew safety was a fleeting illusion. With no time to hesitate, they forced themselves into the brush again, hearts hammering in unison. As they moved toward a shallow cave nestled in the stone walls, Sophia risked a glance back just in time to see the massive form, gliding like smoke, emerging from the trees. It was watching, hunting, waiting for its prey to falter. Quick, in here, Jonah urged, pushing them into the shelter of the cave. They huddled in the dark, shadowed by the cold, stone walls. Silence enveloped them, yet it felt charged, like a charged atmosphere before a storm. Sophia tried to steady her breath, but the fear cycled through her thoughts over and over again. Is it gone? Max whispered, his voice trembling. I don't know, Sophia replied, huddled tight, their silence saying everything. But that silence broke when a distant howl echoed again, closer this time. We can't stay in here. If it finds us, Jonah's voice trailed off, the implication hanging heavy. Then we need to move again, Sophia stated, her determination surfacing amidst the desperate anxiety. But we have to stick together. With cautious yet swift movements, they navigated out of the cave, their hearts sinking with every step. They knew Lila depended on them to pull through. Lila was counting on them, and they dared not let her down. In what felt like a heartbeat, they found themselves at the edge of the woods, the brightness of the first light creeping over the horizon. But as they emerged into the clearing, hope clashed with despair. The sight before them was horrifying. The shape of the creature was silhouetted against the dawn's light, blocking their path. Panic surged through them, but it was this moment that ignited resolve. Sophia's voice rang out, trembling but fierce. We need to confront it, together. What? Max gasped, but they were already taking steps forward. Lily clenched her fists, nodding resolutely. For ourselves, for everyone. We want to let it win. Gathering their courage, they pressed forward as one, undeterred by fear or uncertainty. Facing the beast, they shouted defiance curling from their lips like a swirling tempest. The creature paused, eyes flickering with confusion. It was then they realized together their strength outshone its. The beast, for all its fearsome power, was trapped by their collective courage. In a flash, they capitalized on that moment. Rushing as one through the clearing, they slipped past the creature, hearts racing toward freedom, the rising light of morning within reach. As they burst into the golden dawn, laughter erupted unknowingly from deep within their souls, the kind that washed over them like a cleansing tide. They were free. For the moment, they had won. Breathless and intermixed amidst each other's joy, they gathered in tight hugs under the sun. They had stared down fear and claimed their power back. That day would forever be inked in their hearts, an adventure that unraveled them, but ultimately bound them together stronger than ever before. The shadows of the night still lingered in their hearts, but they knew even against the darkest storms, they could find their way out together. And if they could overcome that, every day ahead would be a victory worth celebrating. Don't forget, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button and feed the algorithm so we can keep sharing amazing adventures. Flood the comments section with your reactions, theories, and thoughts on what happens next. And for the love of adventure, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Together, let us keep the story alive.